train hissed like it was exhaling a warning, wheels grinding against rusted rails as it slowed to a stop in Ash Hollow. Dust kicked up in long brown fingers across the platform. Elias Boone stepped down with a suitcase in one hand and a folded letter in the other. The paper was soft at the edges, creased from how often he'd unfolded it just to read the same words over again. "I'm ready for someone kind. Come west. Be my husband." He glanced around. Women stood in clusters, ranchers' daughters, widows, store clerks, their dresses catching wind, their mouths already twitching with judgment. They looked him over the yowl, way one might size up a horse that came in limping. No one approached. He waited. A minute passed. Then another. Voices stirred. Laughter came low, cruel under breath. "That him? Lord, he looks like he's afraid of his own boots. I asked for a man, not a scarecrow in a suit." The matchmaker, Mrs. Talbot, stepped forward with a pitiful smile and shrugged like it wasn't her fault. "Looks like your bride's changed her mind, Mr. Boone. These things happen." He nodded once, slow, not trusting his voice to make the climb out of his throat. The letter slipped back into his coat pocket like a secret never meant to be seen again. "Guess he don't got much to say," a man muttered. "That what she wanted? A mute husband? Maybe he's just dumb." More laughter. Elias kept his gaze low, not afraid, just used to silence. He picked up his bag and walked toward the edge of town, past stares and whispers that clung to him like flies on sweat. The hammering heat of midday didn't break him. Neither did the shame. What cracked something deep was the sound of a little girl asking her mother, "Why's he so sad?" The mother didn't answer. Elias didn't flinch. He found the blacksmith's shed by scent, iron, sweat, ash. The man inside was broad with smoke-colored skin and shoulders like boulders. He was hammering steel, rhythm steady, the way a heart beats when it's not worried about anything. Elias waited. When the man noticed him, he simply said, "Need something?" "Work," Elias said. "You got hands?" He held them up, scarred palms, burn marks, years of labor etched in skin. "You know metal?" "I know how it breaks." That was enough. The blacksmith jerked a thumb toward the furnace. "Clean the ash pan. You can stay in the stall out back. Don't ask for pay yet." Elias nodded, took off his coat, went to work. The town forgot about him by sunset. But Clara didn't. She watched. From behind the cracked window pane of the schoolhouse, chalk still in her hand, a map of the territories on the board behind her. She saw him as he bent under the weight of a broken wagon axle, sleeves rolled, not wincing when his fingers bled. She knew that silence. The kind you wear when speaking would only make the pain worse. They hadn't spoken, not yet, but silence could be loud when it was shared. Elias didn't complain. He rose before the sun and worked until stars came out. The town called him Quiet Boone behind his back. A few called him worse. He kept fixing what was broken. The piano at the church hadn't made a sound in 5 years. He got it singing again, in 3 hours. The pastor tried to thank him, but Elias had already walked away. Clara passed him one morning outside the mercantile. Their eyes met, and for a moment, it felt like the only honest thing either of them had felt in years. She nodded. He tipped his hat. That was all. The weeks blurred. Then came the buggy wheel. Clara's snapped 10 miles out of town. She had students with her, dust thick in their throats. No one on the road for hours, until Elias rode up, mule in tow, toolbox lashed to the saddle. He didn't ask what happened. Didn't ask anything. Just knelt in the dirt and set to work. Children watched. Clara stood, one hand on her hip, unsure how to thank someone who didn't ask for thanks. When the wheel turned again, she offered water. He took it. "You always this quiet?" she asked. He looked at her and said, "Only when I got nothing worth saying." She laughed, not loud, just enough to let him know it was a good answer. They started meeting on her porch after sunset. She'd pour tea. He'd sit on the step. Sometimes they'd talk. Sometimes they wouldn't. But the silence wasn't awkward anymore. It was safe. She told him about her students, how one boy couldn't read but could recite psalms by heart, how the girls braided each other's hair even during spelling tests. He listened. That was rare. One night, he brought a notebook. Inside were sketches, rifle parts, saddle designs, a clock mechanism with handwritten notes on pressure and tension. "You draw these?" she asked. He nodded. "You build them too?" He didn't answer, but the way his fingers hovered over the pages told her yes. "You used to be someone else," she said. "Still am." "Where you from?" "East. Why'd you leave?" He looked up at the stars. Too many ghosts. That was all she got, and it was enough. Words still swirled about him, that he'd been rejected, that he talked more to mules than people, that maybe something was off about him. A town like Ash Hollow had a memory like a drunk man. Loud, mean, and always too quick to forget kindness, but never cruelty. But Clara didn't care. She knew what it meant to be judged for things people didn't understand. Her husband had been dragged off for speaking up when a white man called Clara a favor girl. They hanged him while she screamed behind a locked door. No one spoke of it now, but she remembered. That's why Elias mattered, because he never asked her to forget. He repaired the bell at the school one evening, climbed the crooked rafters, recast the striker from melted iron. When it rang the next morning, kids clapped their hands. She stood beneath it, looking up at him. He said, "Didn't like hearing it broken." "Thank you." He nodded and turned away. And still, no one claimed him. No woman, no badge, no history. Just work and silence and watching the world from the edge of town like he didn't quite belong to it. But Clara knew. And when her fingers brushed his knuckles one night, neither of them pulled away. Elias Boone had come west for a bride. He'd been mocked, turned away, laughed at, forgotten. But Clara hadn't seen a failed man. She'd seen someone who chose silence over lies, and she wasn't about to let the town bury another good man. Not again. His hands still trembled sometimes. Not from fear, but memory. Elias Boone had spent every night since arriving in Ash Hollow, trying to wear down the parts of himself he didn't want to remember. But scars don't fade, because a man wills them. Too, they wait, quiet, just like he did. The days were long and hard. That suited him. The forge didn't ask questions. Neither did the mule he fed before sunup, or the furnace he stoked until his shirt clung to him with sweat. His room in the back of the shed was barely wide enough for a cot, a trunk, and a basin. He kept it spotless, like a soldier expecting inspection. People passed him in the street now. They didn't point or laugh anymore. They just didn't look at him at all. He preferred it. Clara was the only one who ever looked him straight in the eye. She came by with small repairs, bent. Nails, cracked wood, broken clock hands. Not because she couldn't fix them. She'd just say, "This little thing's been bothering me, thought maybe you could take a look." He always could. They barely spoke. Not out of awkwardness. Their silence had gravity, like words might break it if handled wrong. She once asked if he ever missed where he came from. He'd paused. "I miss what I thought it was." Clara understood that in her bones. She'd lost more than land or safety. She'd lost the right to be seen as something whole, a widow with skin too dark and pride too sharp for this town's comfort. They didn't bother her now, not directly, but they never welcomed her either. Even her students, brown and pale alike, played louder for their white teacher on the other side of town. Still, Clara kept teaching, kept smiling for the ones who needed her to. But at night, her smile fell away, and she let herself feel alone, until Elias started walking her home. At first it was coincidence, then it wasn't. One evening she asked, Why didn't you ever leave after what happened?" He kept walking. "Leaving don't change how people see you." "Still," she said, "some go anyway." "I've been going most my life," he replied. "Don't make it home." She stopped in front of her gate. "You think this is home?" He looked at her then for the first time like he wasn't afraid of what she'd see. Not yet. But maybe. The next day, he brought her a music box. Wooden, simple, hand-carved with flowers. No words, just placed it on her porch rail and walked off. When she wound it, it played soft, slow notes she didn't recognize. Not church music, not dance hall stuff. Something in between. Sad, but steady, like a man who wouldn't run even if the ground cracked under him. She kept it on her windowsill. Rumors kept circling. Not cruel, just lazy. Elias was strange, quiet. Might have been touched in the head. Maybe he was hiding something. He was. He'd been hiding his rage for years, not the loud kind. Not the kind that swung bottles or raised fists. The kind that sat inside a man's chest and tightened every time he saw someone bullied, beaten, or bent by power. The kind that burned slow but steady, like coals under ash. He'd felt it again. The day Clara's student Ella May came to school with a black eye. Clara had asked gently. The girl said she fell. Later, Elias saw her father drunk behind the livery, shouting at the wind. Elias said nothing, but the next day the man had a broken finger and a boot so full of mud he limped. No one saw it happen. But Clara saw Elias wiping dirt from his knuckles later, his eyes hard. She didn't ask. She just handed him a cup of tea. Then came the smoke. One morning, Clara opened her schoolhouse door to find a charred scrap nailed to it. Blackened wood, twisted nails, a crude message etched with a knife. Teach somewhere else. She didn't flinch, just pulled it down, dumped water on the ash, and opened the door for her students like nothing had happened. Elias fixed her fence that night. Didn't ask for permission. He rebuilt the hinges on her door the day after. Still, she felt fear crawling up her spine like frost. He saw it. That same night, he finally spoke. "I don't like what they did to you." She didn't look up. "It's not new. It should be over. It won't be. It could." His voice was calm, but something was different in it. Steel behind the smoke. She asked him quietly, "You ever hurt a man before?" His pause said more than a confession. "When I had to," he said. "You plan to?" "When it's needed." She looked at him long. "They'll come back." "I know." Later, she would remember that look in his eye, the way his jaw tightened, like someone remembering a promise they hadn't wanted to keep. Marshal Wayland returned 2 nights later. Same man who led the mob that killed Clara's husband under the lie of keeping peace. Now older, meaner, drunk on his own survival. He rode in with a few men from upstate, all wearing badges they didn't earn, loud and armed and laughing too hard. He walked into the general store and asked about the colored schoolmarm and her mute dog. No one stopped him. He left the store and spat tobacco at Clara's fence, said he wanted to talk. Elias was there, just standing, arms crossed, watching. Wayland grinned. "That your girl now, Boone? Didn't think you had the stones." Elias said nothing. Wayland chuckled. "You're still the little sharpshooter that went soft, ain't you?" The name stung like ice water. Someone at the edge of town finally whispered it. "Wait, Elias Boone? Union Boone?" The war story rushed back through ears like wildfire. One of the best shots in the Union, killed at least 30 men from 200 yards, disappeared after the war. Rumor said he refused an order and walked off the battlefield. Wayland leaned in. "Tell her why they sent you home. Tell her how you quit, because you didn't want to kill civilians." Elias's hand twitched, but still, he said nothing. That night, Wayland's men rode by Clara's school again, lit a torch, tossed it at the front steps. She woke to the smell of smoke, grabbed water, threw her cloak over her head and stamped it out before it could spread. In the morning, the porch was scorched. Her students stared. The town said nothing. Elias was gone. No one saw him until sundown. He walked out of the shed, dressed in something different. Not clean, not fancy, but sharp. A dark blue coat. The rifle on his back gleamed like something sacred. The revolver at his hip sat quiet as thunder waiting to break. He went to Clara's porch, looked her in the eyes. "You still want me to?" "Stay quiet." She shook her head. "I want you to come back." He touched her hand once. Then he turned and walked toward the saloon, where Wayland laughed too loud and drank too much and didn't yet know that the quietest man in town had remembered how to make noise. The first time Elias killed a man, it was in winter. He never spoke of it, not even to the wind, but it lived in the way he paused before touching a weapon, in the way his fingers closed slowly around steel, as if asking permission. That man had been armed. That man had laughed as he raised his gun toward a girl hiding in a church window. Elias never missed, and yet he'd kept that death close. It had weighed down every step west, every word he never said. Now he walked, with none of that weight. The people of Ash Hollow didn't know what to make of the man stepping through the dust at sundown. They had seen Elias Boone hammer iron, sweep ash, fix wagon wheels, and schoolhouse steps. They'd whispered about the scars on his hands and the silence in his mouth, but this version, this one with his coat buttoned, his rifle gleaming, his eyes steady as a judge's, was unfamiliar, dangerous. He crossed the street, boots heavy with purpose. Children playing marbles stopped and watched. Men outside the barber shop looked up and fell silent. The saloon's door creaked as he pushed it open. Inside, Marshal Wayland and his boys were halfway through a bottle. Their laughter fell flat the moment Elias stepped in. No threats, no raised voice, just the sound of the floor under his step. Wayland turned, red-faced and smug. "Well, hell, look what crawled out of the dirt." Elias looked past him. 6 men, at least, 3 at the tables, 2 at the bar, 1 on the stairs. "I'm not here to talk," Elias said, voice calm and cold. "Oh? You bringing her a love note?" Wayland's grin stretched wide. "She your gal now? That the game?" Elias didn't blink. "You're done scaring her. You here to tell me that or do something about it?" Elias dropped a silver coin onto the bar. It spun, hummed against the wood and fell silent. A signal. "I won't give a second warning." Wayland stood. "You planning to shoot up a town full of folks just because they don't like your girl?" The room tightened. Fingers twitched near holsters. Men leaned forward just enough. Elias tilted his head. "I don't care who likes her. I care who hurts her." Wayland's smirk slipped. One of his men reached for a pistol. Elias moved first. The shot was so fast, no one saw his hand rise. A hole opened in the floorboard between the man's feet. The man froze mid-motion, eyes wide. Elias didn't even glance down. "One chance," Elias said. "Leave," Wayland spat. "You gonna kill us all?" "If I have to." The saloon owner stepped back. Even the piano player stood. No one wanted to be between this man and whatever he'd become. Wayland sneered. "Big talk for someone who quit the war like a coward." Elias looked at him, truly looked at him, and there was no anger in it, only a kind of still mercy that terrified more than rage ever could. "I didn't quit," Elias said. "I refused to become you." Wayland barked a laugh. "That's funny. You look a lot like me now." Elias pointed his rifle. "No, I know where to aim. A beat." Then chaos. The man at the bar tried to draw. Elias dropped him with one shot. A second lunged from the stairs. Elias rolled sideways, shot through the railing, hit him in the shoulder. He tumbled down, screaming. Wayland ducked behind a table, shouting orders. Elias took cover behind a post, counting shots, watching shadows move. 2 more charged. Elias sidestepped, slammed the butt of his rifle into one's head, and shot the other through the leg before he hit the floor. Glass shattered. The saloon's windows exploded as townsfolk scattered. Some ducked into alleys. Others froze, too stunned to move. Inside, only Wayland was left standing. He held a revolver in one hand, grabbed a trembling girl with the other, the same one Clara had helped read her first sentence weeks ago. Wayland's voice cracked. "Back off or I swear I'll put her down right here." Elias stepped out into the open. His gun was not raised. "She's not who you're angry at," Elias said, slow. "Shut up. I didn't come here to kill you. I came to end it." Wayland's grip tightened on the girl's arm. "You think I don't see it?" Elias asked, louder now. "You never stopped being a coward. You wear a badge like it means something, but all you ever did was hide behind fear, behind threats, behind crowds of fools who thought you were brave because you were the loudest." "I'll shoot her," Wayland hissed. Elias stared at the girl's eyes, wide, wet, waiting. He raised his revolver slowly, held it to the side. "She's not your shield," he said. "Neither is that badge." Wayland blinked. That moment was all Elias needed. One shot, straight between the marshal's eyes. The girl was still screaming when Elias caught her, pulled her close, covered her ears. Wayland fell like a sack of flour. The silence afterward wasn't peace, it was relief. The townsfolk crept back out, stared at the mess. At the quiet man with the long rifle who stood without shaking. No one mocked him. No one dared. They asked questions, of course, but Elias didn't answer many. Just returned the girl to her mother, walked back to the blacksmith, sat on the stoop and waited for the sun to go down. Clara found him there. She didn't speak at first, just stood, looking at the smoke still curling from the saloon's broken windows. "You okay?" she asked finally. He didn't look up. "No, but I will be." She sat beside him. For a long time they didn't say anything. Then she whispered, "You were right. You didn't quit. You just stopped following cowards." He nodded. The next day someone nailed a new sign outside the schoolhouse, built by hand, painted clean, Miss Mayfield's school, protected. By the Boone line, some townsfolk grumbled. Most didn't. Some brought tools and supplies, quiet peace offerings. Others simply tipped their hats. No one mentioned mail-order husbands again. Elias never spoke about the war, about the trial, or the name he left behind. He didn't need to. Clara knew. He wasn't shy. He was careful. He wasn't soft. He was steel, wrapped in silence. And when he finally smiled, really smiled, it was for her. A smile not built for war or shame or proving worth. It was the kind of smile a man wears when he knows he's finally home. They buried Wayland behind the church. Near the others, no one mourned. No eulogy, just a shovel, hard earth, and a silence no prayer could soften. Elias didn't go. Neither did Clara. The town did what it had to, then moved on, slower than before. Quiet didn't seem so strange now. People came by the blacksmith shop more often, not for words, just for things that needed fixing. Tools, hinges, trust. Elias didn't charge them. He fixed what was broken. That was enough. Clara's school bell rang every morning. Kids started arriving early. They left flowers on her steps. Drawings, apples, apologies in the form children understood best. One afternoon, Elias found Clara replacing books on her shelf, her sleeves rolled, a smudge of chalk on her cheek. He just stood in the doorway watching her. "You here for arithmetic help?" she asked without turning. "No," he said, "but I'd stay if I was." She smiled and finally looked at him. "You okay?" He shrugged. Still waking up before dawn, still talking to mules more than people. She closed the last book. "Sounds like peace to me." He nodded once, then reached into his coat and handed her a folded piece of paper. Faded ink, creased corners. She opened it slowly. It was the original letter, the one that brought him here, a matchmaker's promise, a stranger's hope. Clara looked at him. "You carried this all this time?" He rubbed the back of his neck. "I thought maybe if I kept it I'd still have a chance to be wanted." She didn't speak right away. Then she folded the letter again and placed it on the shelf. "You were wanted," she said. "You just weren't understood." That evening they sat on her porch as the wind rolled through the valley. No one watched them now. No one whispered. "I ever tell you what I did after the war?" Elias asked. She shook her head. "I went east, tried to live among men who wore uniforms and lied about glory. They gave me medals, then took them back when I said no." "No to what?" "To burning a town that hadn't raised a single gun." She stared at him. "What happened?" "They called it insubordination. Said I put my conscience above the cause. You did." He looked at her. Didn't feel like it then. Just felt like being thrown away. Clara reached over, took his hand. "Sometimes being thrown away is how we get found." He held her hand gently, like he was afraid of holding too tight and losing the moment. Winter rolled in. The first frost came early. The forge burned hotter. The mornings were quieter. The children brought kindling, and Clara's students sang carols out of tune and louder than they had any right to. Elias carved her a new sign for the school, polished walnut, hand-carved letters that read, "Hope is a seed you teach to grow." She touched it like it might disappear. "You always make things so carefully," she said. "Some things," he replied. "The ones that matter." Then came a letter from the judge in Carson City. Word of Wayland's actions had spread. Witnesses spoke. One of the men Elias had wounded confessed everything: land seizures, threats, the fire. The letter declared Elias Boone free of any past charges, reinstated even if he ever wanted it. He stared at it for a long time. Clara waited. "I don't want to go back," he finally said. "You don't have to. I don't want the badge. Then don't take it. I just want a roof, a job, and you." Her eyes softened. "That's all I ever wanted." The town voted to give him the old tannery barn abandoned for years. Elias turned it into a shop, part blacksmith, part carpentry. Kids helped carry wood. Old men offered tools. Nobody asked about the past anymore. They saw what he'd done when it counted. That was enough. At the schoolhouse, Clara started teaching. Older students after hours, ones who'd dropped out, been left behind, or too old to attend with the rest. She called it second start lessons. Elias called it justice. They never announced anything between them, but people knew. When Elias fixed something, it ended up with flowers wrapped in old newspaper. When Clara walked to town, someone always tipped a hat or carried her basket. Once, she asked him if he regretted anything. He said, "Only that I didn't come west sooner." She tilted her head. "You sure you were ready before?" "No," he said. "I wasn't. Not until I met you." That spring, on a hill just outside Ash Hollow, Elias began building a house. Not big, not loud, but strong. Clara stood beside him, measuring the frame with a tape that kept snapping back. She shook her head, laughing. "You ever think we'd be here?" "I hoped." "You prayed?" "I don't pray." She raised an eyebrow. "But I hoped," he said again, softer. Then he added, "Every day I wasn't good enough. I hoped someone would see me anyway." She looked at him long. "I didn't see a broken man," she said. "I saw someone who never let being broken stop him." He kissed her hand, lips to scar, slow and grateful. The house took months, but when it stood, warm and wide with a porch, big enough for a table and 2 chairs, he handed her the key without ceremony. "This yours now, too," he said. "Was it ever just yours?" she teased. "No," he replied. "It was always waiting for you." That night, thunder rolled far off, a storm never quite arriving. They sat under the porch roof, hands clasped, watching the dark sky light up in flashes. "Still think I'm too quiet?" he asked. She leaned her head on his shoulder. "No," she whispered. "I think you finally said everything." And he had, without raising his voice, without needing to be anything louder than true. Elias Boone had come west, hoping to be chosen. Instead, he was seen, and in the end, that was worth more than any war badge or letter could promise.